what's new video games, and we're talking about Xbox Game Pass and the changes that are coming. There's big good news for subscribers of Game Pass, but there is the ominous threat of change, price increases, new tiers, and the like. So we're going to be breaking it all down. I do this every week as my second segment on Monday, so be sure to check out What's New Video Games linked below, or you can check out Kirk the Gamer on other platforms like the Purple platform if you want to see live streams of him being just probably pretty terrible at games. But if you like his contribution to the channel, make sure and hit subscribe, leave comments below. A lot of you guys don't like what he has to say, and that's okay. Just be respectful in your comments if you're in the live chat or leaving comments below there. So welcome here, Kirk.
Yeah, man. Glad you got to get, some rest and relaxation.
Now we're back into
your kids last week.
Yeah, that's right.
But
that's right.
Yeah, I mean, it's always good to travel and get out there. I was looking forward to a sunny weekend, and then we got clouds where I'm at, unfortunately. But maybe we got all summer. So
you don't seem like the type that gets sun. You're like me though. You tend to stay indoors.
I'm trying to change that. I feel like the mental health is going down the more that I stay inside the house. So maybe Call of Duty will miss me on Game Pass this year. We'll have to see.
Well, we ended the previous stream. If you guys didn't check it out, I have a brand new video uploaded to the channel about Xbox Project Latitude, so be sure to check out the upload. And then the live discussion after was basically like, no game is safe. And so we have that, available for you for the earlier part of the day. And now today, with this segment with Kirk, Game Pass is obviously a huge topic for Xbox fans because with the Activision Blizzard deal closing, a lot of them were thinking we're going to be getting games right away. We're going to be getting Call of Duty. We're going to be getting all the big titles. And it was a real limbo period where nothing was really happening. And then they got Diablo. And then it was confirmed recently that Call of Duty is, in fact, this year, with its annual launch, going to be landing on Game Pass. So I want to just start there. We've got insider information. We got Insider Gaming talking about new tiers, and we got people talking about price increases and stuff. We're going to get there. But I want to start with Call of Duty. Because Call of Duty coming to Game Pass was, to many people, a bit of a surprise. There was an internal discussion about not doing it because they know just how many copies the game will sell. So what were your thoughts when you heard it confirmed, in sort of the wake of all the speculation that it wouldn't be happening or they were considering not doing it? What were your thoughts when you heard, no, Call of Duty's headed to Game Pass this year, day one?
So I actually heard it from Reforge Gaming's own creature in Writer's Room. Mm-hmm. They were having a discussion about it on either Thursday or Friday, and I kind of did a double take. I was like, is this confirmed? Like, I assumed it was speculative, but this is pretty much all but confirmed, or is confirmed at this point, other than I don't think Xbox has said it directly themselves, but very reputable sources are saying this is absolutely 100% happening. So we're taking this as truth now. And that I think that was my reaction, was that I was just surprised that it was actually a thing. I assumed that it was speculative. It's not that like it couldn't happen, but once it became reality, it was kind of like, oh, okay, they're actually doing this. Mm-hmm. And it's not really like it doesn't make any sense, or it's like I couldn't conceive of them doing it. I guess I just didn't expect it necessarily. And that's just because, like, to put that big of a game, like that high selling of a game, I mean, we talked about on another conversation, I can't remember what topic that was or what day that was, but we were talking about how like Call of Duty has been the highest seller for like 8 years in a row until Hogwarts dethroned them last year, something like that. Mm-hmm. I'm just pulling numbers out of my butt, but it's something around that. It's not far off the mark. So I mean, that's crazy to then include that in a subscription that, is currently ostensibly maybe losing Xbox money. I mean, I guess we'll get into that, but that it has flatlined to a degree. So I suppose their aim is to entice or motivate, incentivize people to get into that subscription and elevate those numbers. We all know that they kind of, what's the word? They kind of misrepresented those numbers in the Xbox podcast when they said that they had however many subscribers, and then I think they were including the core subscription in that number or whatever. So
Yes.
it seemed like it
Yes.
was artificially inflated to a degree. But yeah, I guess my main take on this is what's the impetus for this, or like what are they trying to do with this? What's the objective? And then if we presume that the objective is to raise the number of subscribers of that platform, is Call of Duty actually a bona fide incentive for people to subscribe to Game Pass? Like, I'm genuinely not sure. Like, because I think there's a lot of gamers out there that play, Call of Duty, Madden, and 2K, or whatever their assortment of games are.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like those 3 or those 5 for them on a yearly basis, and that's all they play. And I don't know, like, Game Pass is highly appealing for someone like me that wants to check out Cocoon for 2 hours, or wants to play Venba or something of that ilk. Like, I don't know that the average Call of Duty gamer is going to be like, oh wow, like all these like unique and different indie experiences and these other games that I wouldn't have thought to pick up. I'm really glad I'm subscribed to this platform. Like, I don't know that if Call of Duty gets them in the door, I don't know if it keeps them there. And then also, I don't know that people are going to look at a $17 a month subscription and say, yes, that has more value for me than just buying the game outright. I'm not really sure, but I'd love to know your thoughts.
Yeah, I was going to kind of go the direction that Zubair went in chat, that games don't get subscribers for Game Pass. That's kind of an established thing, that it's not real. Like, Starfield did, but generally speaking, they have admitted that it's plateaued. We're seeing subscriber services plateau pretty much everywhere. And his point is that they're just trying to get the game in more hands to then hopefully drive microtransactions, which I could see that being the strategy here, that they're like, listen, most of the people that are on Game Pass are there. I wouldn't be surprised if they have internal reports that a lot of the people on Game Pass are less likely to buy annual releases of games because they have just so many games to play every month, that they were like, listen, most people on Game Pass aren't going to buy Call of Duty. They're just going to play free Warzone, because that's totally free to play that, or they'll just play the litany of games that are already on Game Pass. So they probably saw it as a greater likelihood of generating profit or revenue from those users by saying, let's just give them Call of Duty, and then they might do some micros. So to me, I don't think this is going to result in what people were hoping for. Thank you, Mash, for that 10 bomb. I don't think you're going to see this sort of, now people are going to flock to Xbox, they're going to leave PlayStation, they're going to come subscribe to Game Pass so that they don't have to buy the annual Call of Duty release. Like, I don't see this tipping those scales in any measurable respect, because it's like, who is going to do that just to avoid an annual purchase? You got to go buy the box for $500, or for $300, somewhere between $300 and $500 to just get the console, then subscribe to a service that, if you're playing the multiplayer and you want to play past that first month, well, now you're spending whatever the cost of Game Pass is, which we're going to get into a moment. I mean, it's likely going, I think they're going to go a completely different direction with day and date, and even with games like Call of Duty. I don't think you're going to be getting this at the bottom tier. So I see this as just a continued effort for Xbox to say, we have an ecosystem where there's all these games to play, but I don't think they're going to make it as cheap as it has been up to now. I think that's part of the strategy as well here.
Which I think that's a negative element, actually, because, like, I do want to create a distinction between, like, CODs of yesteryear and, like, the new Call of Duty. Like, I think those are two different propositions for Game Pass. I think the idea of putting old Call of Duties on Game Pass is brilliant, especially because there's a lot of them, and the player bases for those are pretty much non-existent, depending on how old they are. Like, you've got some classics like Black Ops 2 or Black Ops 1. There's the Call of Duty 4 Modern Warfare remaster that people like. Some like those that people are still on, but like, that's one thing that Game Pass can do for a game, is bolster its player base, because you have a lot of people that can just jump in pretty much no strings attached and completely free. Well, I had a problem with Discord. I'm back.
I can still see you.
Okay. So in that regard, I fully support that. I think that's a good idea pretty much across the board. Like, I wouldn't have any problem with that. So just addressing putting the new COD, presumably day and date, on Game Pass in isolation, it worries me that creates an element of value that myself and a lot of Game Pass subscribers probably don't necessarily want. Like, I'm already paying. I'm not actually, because I paid it through like 2 years in advance early without having to pay the 17. Like, I got in before the price jump. And I also, to add additional months, I only use Microsoft rewards basically. So I'm not really paying out of pocket. But in theory, if I was, I'd be paying 17. I can't remember if it's $17 or $17.99. But around $17 a month for a service that I like, but that I don't necessarily want to pay. Like, that's over what I'm comfortable with. I'd like it to be 15. I didn't love that price increase. I don't think anyone did. And that's a service that I enjoy and that gives me access to games that I enjoy. But like I was saying, I think in the previous stream, something that I really like about the service is like being able to jump into Cocoon for 2 hours, or being able to play some game that people are talking about that's all the rage, all the buzz. Like, I don't think Animal Well is on there, but there's games like that. Chance of Sinar just dropped on there. A lot of people were raving about that game last year, going into award season. So, like, being able to play those type of games without having to drop $20 every single time just to try it, that's a great element of that service. I don't know that I want a price hike just because they're giving me access to Call of Duty, which I could do without anyway. Like, I don't remember the last time that I bought a COD, like, the month that it came out, or, like, just the year that it came out, basically. So I'm worried that they're going to be adding value to a service that isn't value for me personally, and it's going to cause, like, a mandatory uniform price hike. Right. I'm assuming it's going to go to $20 minimum. If they go over $19.99, I think that is a bad look for the service in general. Like, it's going to look more like less appealing if it's $22.99 or something like that. So I really hope that they just go to $19.99. I think that makes sense for what they're doing. But even that is like, okay, $20 a month is like a lot for a subscription that, you know, you may or may not be utilizing, especially if you want to buy other games.
Well, the way I look at the price hike is I can't see them saying, oh, everybody has to pay more because of Call of Duty. Like, I don't think that's going to be the goal. I think the goal is going to be, and we're sort of shifting into another topic here. I'm going to want to circle back to this decision, but I also think that they're going to say, well, if you want Call of Duty, you're going to have to be on Ultimate, or there's going to be I think there's potentially even going to be a tier above Ultimate, where they're basically going to say, listen, if you want something as big as Call of Duty, you can't be down there on the $10.99. Like, I think Day and Date is going to shift to Ultimate only. I think they're going to raise the price of Ultimate. I think they might even have a tier beyond Ultimate that's going to include titles like COD and others. They're going to do something like that. I don't think they're going to tell you, hey, your $10.99 is now becoming $15 and it's because you get Call of Duty. That's I think the play here is to create almost like a premier package above that includes really, really big titles and really, really, you know, the big blockbusters day and date. So that's where I think that we're hearing whispers from Insider Gaming saying there's new tiers coming. Shinobi basically agreed with this, that, you know, they're going to have a new tier of some sort and that there is a price increase coming. I think this is all heavily related to Call of Duty. This kind of is something I want to ask you about. They're going to have to justify this decision to Microsoft, because we know Microsoft's in the room now. They're really pushing for a lot of changes, and they're going to have to justify this. Like, hey, you're opting out of a $70 premium game sale that is the most popular game generally on consoles. Well, one of the most popular, especially being sold at full price. You're opting out of that and allowing people to play it on a subservice. And we have a super chat here coming from True SSJ Havoc. He says, Tim Dog's mockup had a $29.99 for COD Game Pass Platinum. It's going to be something like that. I agree with that. I don't know if they're going to say, I don't know if they're going to brand it around Call of Duty. I think they're going to brand it around, Game Pass, but you're going to pay more if you want to play games like this day and date. I agree with that prediction.
I guess I'm just worried that it's going to affect my Ultimate. Do you know if... I was under the impression, and I'm looking it up now because I may be wrong. I was under the impression that you had to have Ultimate to basically have online. Is that not true? Like, is the $10.99 a month? Does that Game Pass give you like what essentially Live is?
Yeah, that's why the tiers right now don't make any sense, because they converted all of the Xbox Live people to Core, so they get like a slate of 25 games and they get online. And then if you upgrade to the Game Pass at like $10.99, you lose online. So like it's like super confusing.
Wild. Right. So I don't even count that then. Like, nobody is subscribing for $10.99 a month and then not having access to online gameplay in the year 2024.
Right.
I don't even count that as a tier. So that's why I'm concerned. Like, I have Ultimate. I have to have Ultimate.
Okay.
Because I want to be online.
Right.
The whatever the thing is, but we'll call it console, I guess. Whatever the thing is between Core and Ultimate, like, that doesn't exist for me. That doesn't help me because I lose access to Live. So if they make Ultimate, if they increase the price of Ultimate because they're like, well, we're bringing games like Call of Duty, and so that's value prop for you, I'm going to be like, well, I can't move down. Like, you've cornered me now. I'm stuck because I have to have the highest tier service. Like, unless they create another tier or they fix that console tier and the console tier basically just becomes what Ultimate is now, then there's a lot of people who are going to be stuck. And I really, really hope that they don't do something like that. Like, it wouldn't make any sense for them to increase the price and say, oh, this is now our premium service, but then not have a lower tier option that adequately and effectively like lets you have Game Pass and Xbox Live. Ultimate's the only thing that does that, to my knowledge, unless I'm wrong about console. But that's
you're correct. You're correct. People in chat are saying that console tier in between doesn't have online, which
that's crazy.
I've predicted that they're going to roll that $10.99 and Xbox Game Pass Core. I think they're going to roll that into one tier, and you're going to lose day and date on that introductory tier. I think they're going to have an introductory tier called Xbox Game Pass Core, and it's going to be whatever the price is, whatever they end up landing on, and that's just going to be like a batch of games and then gives you online access for games like...
Isn't that just what Core is?
Yeah, I think they're going to roll that tier down into Core, and if you want day and date, and if you want online, you're going to have to be on Ultimate. And then I think they're going to go beyond Ultimate, and they're going to have a premium package that ensures you get the biggest games day and date. Like, they're going to consider certain games, quote-unquote, premium games. Like, Call of Duty would be considered a premium game. And like what Zubair's saying, that's a win-win, because people are either going to say, well, I'm going to cancel Game Pass and just buy the game at full price, and then you're potentially now shifting them into a purchasing consumer instead of a subscribing consumer, which you make money off of them. That's a higher margin. And then they're spending money on the microtransactions. Or they just bump up to the higher sub-tier because they really want Call of Duty, and now you're in a win-win, because if they stay on that tier for 3 months, you've made more off of them than the purchase of the game.
I disagree. I think if Netflix said, we're now putting... They may have actually done this, so I may look stupid. If Netflix said, we're now putting our most popular shows behind a higher paywall tier, I think you'd see less people... I think you'd see more people cancel their Netflix subscription entirely than you would see people upgrade. Because that inconvenience, that feeling of, you're just trying to scummily milk me for more money by putting things that I want to watch. I can't think of like the most popular Netflix shows, but putting things that I want to watch behind a higher tier paywall. If it was HBO, like maybe it would be The Last of Us and House of the Dragon or something like that. Like, you got to have the highest tier subscription. I think you would see more people be like, screw that. I'm not paying for your highest subscription just to be able to watch the things that I want to watch. I mean, that's basically the cable problem, right? That's why nobody wants cable, is because just to have ESPN and a couple other channels that you want, you've got to pay $80 for all this package that you don't need.
Well,
And so
the reason your example falls apart is that if you cancel Game Pass, you can just buy Call of Duty, and people would do that because they love Call of Duty that much. Like, I think Zubair's right. Star Wars. If suddenly Disney put Star Wars behind to pay a higher subscription tier, and if I want to see Andor Season 2, I've got to upgrade to see it. Or they give me the option to just buy that season at a high premium. Like, that's what Xbox is going to be doing with this move, I think. They're either going to be getting you to bump up your subscription, or they're going to get you to cancel and just buy the game at full price. And in either scenario,
or neither,
they're winning.
Or cancel and not buy it, because it could be that you're not getting COD, but you're also not getting Indiana Jones. And the person's like, well, what good is the subscription if I can't get Indiana Jones? Also, I don't care enough about Indiana Jones to buy it. Like, I wanted it on the subscription. You've shown me that the subscription doesn't have value because I can't get it on the subscription. I was willing to pay $20 for it. I'm not willing to pay $70 or $80 for it. So I'll just say, screw the lot of you, and I'll go play games on PlayStation.
Oh, so you think this? If they do this, you think they're going to drive people to go to PlayStation?
Unless they're firmly in the ecosystem, like they only have an Xbox. I think if you only have an Xbox, then you're just kind of in. You know, like you're just, what are you going to do, basically, at that point?
Well, I think the challenge there is I would have a hard time thinking somebody is going to go buy a brand new console and spend that amount of money just to play Call of Duty because they're angry that, I don't know, anger is a pretty strong motivator. I mean, I do think there might be some people that just get fed up and say, well, this enough is enough. The brand has changed so much. You're putting Xbox games on PlayStation. You're putting Hi-Fi, Sea of Thieves over there. Like, there's obviously now speculation based on my show this morning and my upload this morning from Project Latitude that games like Halo, Gears, and Starfield are going to head over. And if that, in fact, happens, you might see people conclude what you're saying. They would say, well, what's the point now? Like, if I have to spend this much more money just to maintain day and date, just to maintain Game Pass Ultimate, just to get games like COD, I'm out. You know, I'm switching teams. You know,
that's what I would predict. But then on the I don't want to go full pony here. On the flip side, I have seen people like Jeff Grubb and others, that have basically insinuated that they could make Call of Duty next gen exclusive and then offer it on Game Pass, and then that might incentivize people that are big into COD. They have to upgrade, right? They have to upgrade to a platform. If you're including like a Game Pass subscription for 6 months or a year or whatever in the console or something like that in like a holiday bundle, then maybe that would incentivize people to go out and get a Series S rather than getting a $500 PlayStation. Like, they get everything that they need to go play the one game that they want to play up front with one purchase for much less money. Something like that might be appealing, and they might be able to move units and get some people in the door with subscription wise for that. And everybody knows like the biggest hurdle for subscriptions is just getting somebody in the door, getting somebody to subscribe. Sometimes they'll forget that it's there. They won't remember to cancel. You know, so if they can get people in the door, that might be very good for them.
Right. To me, I don't even know if they're worried about console sales anymore. Like, is that even a concern? Are they going to try to leverage Call of Duty on Game Pass and then next gen only to get people to bump up? That I don't see that being a big priority anymore. I think their goal with this, they're going to use Call of Duty as their way of making Game Pass either more profitable off of the individual users that upgrade, or getting people off of the service so they start buying games at full price. I think that's the play here. I don't know if the play is to get people to buy Series X or S. I don't think that's the I don't see that being as big of a motivator for Xbox at this point, because I think Microsoft is making the calls now. I think they're in charge.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I was thinking maybe it's both, like the all-in-one. Like, if somebody is like, basically, people aren't going to have PS4s and Xbox Ones forever, and really it's PS4, right? Because they have the lion's share of the market right now, even more than PS5, I think, right? Like, more people have PS4s than they have PS5s at the moment, I think.
Yeah, there's that report came out. There are still a ton of monthly active users on PS4, which is why I said when people were talking about Helldivers, I was like, PlayStation would make more money backwards porting Helldivers 2 to PlayStation 4 than they would porting it to Xbox because there's so many monthly active users still on PlayStation 4. So I don't see Call of Duty skipping old gen just yet. I think there's too many people still playing on PlayStation 4.
Again, if they wanted to make a gamble play to get people to upgrade, because again, people have to upgrade eventually. They can't be on PS4 forever in perpetuity. So if they wanted to make a play, and it may not be this year, this may be something that they're planning on doing down the line. They might think it's too early to have a high conversion rate right now. But if they wanted to make a big, high gamble play of like, it's not on old consoles, so you've got to have a new one. You can come over here and you can subscribe for. I mean, what if they think about this? What if they put it in core? Like we're talking about them putting it in a premium package. What if they put it in core? Even still at about 6-7 months, you've got all your money back if you're Microsoft, as long as they subscribe for 6 to 7 months. If you put it in core, they buy your console, they're in your ecosystem, they're buying your games. That's something that people aren't doing right now. Like people just aren't buying Xboxes, aren't buying games on the platform, aren't their numbers for subscriptions for Game Pass are not going up. Like, so I'm just trying to think. It doesn't really necessarily make sense to me that they're doing this. So I'm trying to conceive of ways of like, what are they actually trying to do? What type of consumer behavior are they trying to incentivize? I think there's a number of possibilities. I can see your face reacting. Like, I don't think any of them make a ton of sense. Right. And I agree with you. I totally agree with you on that. So it's like, I'm just trying to kind of turn the wheels and like be like, could it be this? Could it be that? But like, I think at the end of the day, both of us are just kind of like, okay. Yeah, all right. We'll see how that goes. Like it doesn't really like it doesn't it's not like a no-brainer like, of course they'd want to do that because that means blah blah blah. Like I don't know what that blah 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 is. Like I don't know what they're going for necessarily.
We got a couple super chats here. True SSJ Havoc with the 10 bomb says Tim Dog's mock-up was platinum would be $30 for all games. A goal would be $20. It would be all Xbox and Bethesda games. ABK would land on it 12 months later, and then silver would be $6. You'd get 6 to 12 month releases. Activision stuff would come like 12 months later, and then you'd get ads. He's asking what people think about that. I mean, I do think you're going to see a lower tier with ads. I think you're going to see a really, really high, expensive top tier for everything day and date. And Street Shadow with his own $10 super chat says, my counter to the transition PS4 players to Xbox for COD, Game Pass would be that you need to ask that person to give up their games in comfort. Look at the conversion rate for iPhone to Android, vice versa. Yeah, I don't see this being a platform mover. There's no way Call of Duty suddenly landing on Game Pass getting people to switch because like abandoning their library. I mean, like Phil said, digital library continuity is so huge now that you're not going to get people to move because they can still play Call of Duty on PlayStation. They just have to buy it. And that's a lot easier than switching. It's way easier to buy the game than to switch.
Yeah, and I sent you a chart. I don't know if you want to throw that up, but you don't have to. I'll just articulate it vocally. So the monthly active user base for Call of Duty on console is 8% on Xbox, and it's double that, 16% on PlayStation. So it could just be a play to get more monthly active users. Like Call of Duty is a huge cash cow in terms of people just spending money on COD points and then spending COD points to get various skins and things of that nature. And so if you don't have people in, just like with any live service game, then people aren't in your ecosystem, in your store, in your shop spending money. And maybe they want to try to raise that 8%. Like they might not be trying to cut into the 16% on PlayStation. That's fine, all well and good. Happy to be getting money from you now that we own Activision. Keep spending money on COD points, keep buying the game on the PlayStation platform. We're just trying to elevate our own numbers on our platform. People that maybe weren't going to buy COD, just like any other Game Pass game, are now like, well, COD's here and it's new, I'll give it a shot. And then they get in, they like it, they start playing it with their friends, and all of a sudden they're spending microtransaction money on it. Like maybe that's what they're trying to incentivize, is just getting people in the door to ostensibly spend money. But I keep thinking like there's so many ways that this could potentially backfire, and I don't see any like ace in the hole plays of like, oh, this is a big win for Microsoft. Like it could happen, but I think there's so many more ways that this could not go well, given what we've seen as a track record with Game Pass and Xbox's sort of strategy and approach in the last 5 years or so.
Well, and the idea of stuff backfiring and not working, I think so much of the conversation about this, I think everybody's falling prey to this, is we keep smuggling in presumptions about Xbox and what their goal is. Like the idea, like this morning, I was sort of basing my coverage off of the article from Windows Central about, well, these short-term plans are going to have long-term ramifications. And I'm like, yes, but that's only if you think Xbox and Microsoft have a traditional console model in mind. Like, do they care about all of the things that we presumed and assumed 2 and 3 years ago? I feel like we have to throw those presumptions and assumptions out the window now. Like, we can't presume that, like, well, Game Pass and Xbox and this, they're going to make these changes and do these things because this is what they want. And it's like, we don't even know that anymore. Like, we don't know if there is even going to be a focus on having a platform going forward. That was one of the things I talked about today. It's like, in 5 years, is anybody going to think of Xbox as a platform? They'll probably be more thought of as an ecosystem / subscription / publisher, instead of being like, well, I've got to get an Xbox for this reason. Like, basically what I said is, traditionally you would buy a console, a Nintendo or a Sega, because of the game. There was a game that you had to get or play, whether it was Mario or Sonic or Halo or Metal Gear Solid. So that tradition and that history is so long-standing, I don't think you're going to see that change anytime soon. I don't think Nintendo or PlayStation are going to abandon that principle. But if Call of Duty is going to be part of the Xbox showcase in the summer, then everything we think about Xbox is changing so rapidly and so quickly. I don't even think we can make presumptions and assumptions about, well, this is really going to damage their goals long-term, because their goals could be completely different.
Yeah, we have no idea what that internal shift looks like. So I think that's a very good point. But at the same time, I don't think it's indicative of what that shift is going to be. Like, I think we've had some ideas based on, games like Sea of Thieves and Hi-Fi Rush and potentially even, Hellblade or Indiana Jones coming over to PlayStation. Starfield is rumored as well. What that strategy is going to be. And then something like this, it seems like it's kind of still in line with like Phil's old strategy of like, get everybody in on Game Pass, subscription is the way forward type of deal. So I'm not sure if this is kind of like a carryover from the old strategy, and it's just something that they've wanted to implement for a while, that it was like a target of the acquisition. Like, maybe that's what they're showing Microsoft executives, is like, hey, we have data projections that show that if we do this, it'll make the Activision purchase more worthwhile. I don't know how that calculation would happen. I don't know what, simulation they're running or whatever that shows that. But like, I would assume they're not going to do it if they don't think it makes business sense. So I'm assuming something is sort of supporting this move. And I would have to think it's a move that they've wanted to make ever since they decided to buy Activision. It would be a weird, very willy-nilly kind of fickle thing if they were like, well, now, like, we weren't going to do this initially, like when we decided to spend, $70 billion or whatever it was to buy them. But now that we have them, what if we put it on Game Pass? I'm assuming this is something that they've wanted to do, that they've been targeting as an objective for a while. And so I do wonder, kind of to your point, if it is in line with Xbox's current strategic goals and the shift that we're seeing happen there, or if it's kind of a holdover, a carryover from a bygone era.
Right. Well, and Eugene's making the point that the COD campaign and traditional multiplayer don't drive microtransactions. Warzone does, and it's free. But the mistake you might be making, Eugene, is you're forgetting they typically tie the two together. Like, if you buy the new game, you get to unlock and get stuff for Warzone. So if they can create that cohesion of, hey, Warzone players, you want to buy the latest Call of Duty, everything's in that Call of Duty headquarters hub, and it's all tied together. And when you play the campaign or you play through those things and you get those unlocks, well, you have a choice. You either buy the annual purchase of Call of Duty, or you can get it on Game Pass. And if Game Pass has that higher tier subscription, either way, Microsoft is getting you to dole out more money. You're either signing up for the highest tier of Game Pass, upgrading, or buying Call of Duty brand new. Now, if this plan doesn't work, if there's some internal metric, Kirk, where they're like, hey, that didn't work, okay?
Which I think is likely, honestly.
Are they setting a bad precedent for themselves? Because then if they have to walk that back in the future, Microsoft could say, we're not doing that again. Then the next Call of Duty doesn't land on Game Pass. Is that something that could potentially happen in the future, that they just decide, no, this is just a fool's errand at this point. We can't put these big titles on a subservice.
It's almost such a big play to put the new Call of Duty on there day and date, as opposed to what EA Play does, where they put last year's Madden or last year's EAFC on the platform. It's such a big play that I almost have to be like, Xbox must know what they're doing. They must know that this is going to yield some sort of growth or some sort of revenue that they're going to get. They must know that. But then their track record and the way that they've been operating for however long now, and the blunders that they've made in the past year or so in particular, just makes me feel like, no, I don't necessarily have confidence in that. I don't know that they absolutely know what they're trying to do with this, and that it's going to be successful. So I think it's because we're in that new landscape where, I think people like yourself always had doubts about Xbox, but we're really starting to see them kind of fail in real time now. And so I think in that new climate, looking at something like this, it's do they really know what they're doing? Because before, we always kind of assumed, they buy Bethesda and they say, oh, we're gonna do all this stuff with Bethesda, and we're like, okay, and they buy Ninja Theory, they buy all these studios, they're like, we're gonna give you really great games on this platform. You have to assume that they have goals in mind, and they have the intent, and they have the wherewithal and the capacity to produce positive results. And then you don't really see that come to fruition for whatever reason. Or at least it's sort of ho-hum, like with Starfield. It's not like Starfield's a bad game. I don't think that I would argue, or anyone would necessarily argue, that it's just objectively bad. It has shortcomings. It's not what it was supposed to be. And so we're now at that point to where it's oh, Xbox didn't really deliver on anything that they were targeting. So now they're targeting something else. It's kind of foggy or obscure to us what it is that they're targeting. And then the question is well, is this going to work? And I think previously we might have been well, they probably know what they're doing. Now I feel like we're it doesn't seem like they know what they're doing at all. I don't know what they're trying to do with this. I'm just kind of worried that my subscription price is going to go up, which it's fine. I'm kind of ready to cancel it in 2 years anyway when my subscription runs out. I don't know that it's a service that I want to, that it's a platform, really. There's nothing wrong with the service. I don't know that Xbox is a platform that I want to keep doling out money to participate in. And I don't know that this changes that. If anything, it makes me a little more concerned, because again, I haven't bought a Call of Duty in a while now, and I don't know that, this might be cool for me to jump in and play it, but it's certainly not going to give me value that I would think is comparable to paying more than $20 for the tier of Game Pass that I have to be able to play games online.
Yeah, Eugene's really pushing the point that currently Warzone drives the microtransactions, but it also drives people to purchase COD every year. And this is sort of reversing that, flipping it on its head. Yeah. He's like, well, what customer are you getting to spend more money with this move? Who are you getting to dole out more revenue by doing this?
Warzone being free makes this so much weirder, because you already have a free option if you want to play Call of Duty for free. Call of Duty, the proper mainline title that released every year, was for people that specifically wanted to drop the $70 or $100 to get it. And so,
well, according to the report that I read this morning, they're trying to get every department to increase margins. And so the question's being asked, how does this maximize margins? Where's the angle? Is it the MAU? You get the monthly active users to spike. Does that give confidence to the shareholders? Does that then the microtransaction strategy that Upper Echelon talked about in his video? Is that the goal here? That if you just fill that funnel with more players, you're more likely to get micros? But again, the only micros thing I can think
of, yeah, exactly. The only thing I can think of is that 8% on Xbox, maybe it's even lower now. Maybe it's 7%. Let's say Doomsday, it's 6%, hypothetically. or they have projections that the number is going to go down. If it's 6% or it's projected to be 6% within a year or two, that's sort of catastrophic territory for Xbox if they literally own Activision. So the only thing I can think of is like maybe the active user base is so low, like in a way that they wouldn't even want to articulate publicly, that this is kind of a desperation play to get people into their IP on their own platform. Like that's the only thing I can think of, is that the people playing COD, the number of people playing COD on an Xbox as opposed to other platforms is so ridiculously low that putting it on the subscription, they're seeing that as only a net positive.
Maybe. But again, if you're giving people the option to not purchase the game, you're also giving people the option to churn and burn, because they can sign up for Game Pass, play the campaign, and then they can cancel Game Pass. We know there's a significant number of people every year who buy COD just for the campaign. They play the campaign, and then that's it. That's all they do. There's a lot of people that do that, and there's always been a lot of people that do that. They like the campaign. They like the vibe of the game. And I was sort of on the in-between. I would always play the campaign, and then I would switch over to multiplayer. But I'm now that guy. Like, I want to play your campaign. I want to have those curated cinematic moments, which is why Modern Warfare 3's campaign was so just disappointing. It just didn't feel like a Call of Duty campaign at all. And that was an Activision decision. That had nothing to do with Microsoft or Xbox. They made that decision long before they were purchased. And if they move in this direction, are they going to miss out on all those purchases from all those people? Because then they can just sign up for Game Pass. Because I'm looking at Hellblade 2 and the fact that I have to play it on my PC and I'm going to buy it in Steam, and I'm like, I'm on that verge of saying I don't even use Game Pass anymore. Like, my kiddos use it every once in a while, but that's pretty much it.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Again, the only thing I can think of is that their sales numbers on the Xbox platform are so low that it doesn't matter anyway. I don't think we have confirmation that it's coming to PC Game Pass, right? Like like some games come to Game Pass, they don't come to PC Game Pass. So maybe that's a thing, is that people would still have to buy it on PC. So that's the only thing I can think of, is like that the Xbox sales numbers for Call of Duty specifically on Xbox are so low that they'd rather just get people into the game. And then maybe like you said, like you're perceiving a value deficit in the subscription. If they were thinking about like basically if it's a necessity for them to increase the price to $19.99 anyway, and they can keep it that low and put COD on there, maybe they're thinking, okay, well, we have to increase the price. We've got to provide additional value, and we're not making sales on the platform anyway. Maybe we can just offer COD as value proposition for this service, and that'll make people not want to leave. Like, at least people may register, okay, for $19.99, getting COD every year as a part of the subscription that I'm already paying for is pretty good value. I, as a logical, rational human, can understand that.
Right.
Whether or not I'm super stoked for the game or not, I do get that you're giving me a very high-profile game on the service that I'm paying for. Maybe I'm less incentivized to cancel it now.
Right.
Like, there's myriad factors that are at work here, that if you analyze it in the context of that Xbox is doing incredibly poorly right now, like if you apply that context, I'm not saying that's necessarily true, but if you apply the context of, oh, maybe they're doing worse than we even can conceive of, this move starts to make a lot of sense, and it seems like it might be a net positive. Without that context, it's very weird, and it doesn't make too much sense. So if anything, this might be indicative that like Xbox is really in trouble in a genuine way.
Yeah, I've got to thank Mash. He dropped a 20 bomb on chat. 20 gifted members. Gee, many Christmas. I now owe you guys 5. I really appreciate that. Guys, take a second and thank Mash, and smash the like button too. A lot of people here. We appreciate you guys tuning into this show on Mondays that I do with Kirk. He's got a hard out in just a little bit here, but we appreciate the support. We will be going to a writer's room after this, and that's a great benefit to all the people who just got a gifted member. So show that appreciation to Mash in chat, and then give that like button a smash if you guys have enjoyed this conversation. Like, what you're saying is, to me, this idea of like, well, are they trying to drive Game Pass subscriptions? And I actually think it's the other way around. I think they're trying to drive justification for a price increase so that they can get better margins on their Game Pass subscriptions.
Which I'm worried about, because if it's over $19.99, I think that's a deal breaker for me. and I feel like it would be for a lot of people. If you increase that to $22.99, $23.99, I don't know. I don't know that people are going to stick with that. I think you're going to see some drop off.
And that might not even be a concern, because they might look at the projections and know that anybody motivated to fall off of Game Pass by this is likely to then buy a couple games a year, and they're not losing money on you. If you roll off of something that's costing you, what's Ultimate right now? What's the cost of Ultimate right
17
now?
17 or 18.
It's 17. So if you're spending that in a year, you're spending $204, okay? At $204, if you divide that by $70 full price games, as long as they buy 3 games a year, which the average person buys somewhere between 1 and 3 games a year. If they buy 3 games a year, then Microsoft, as long as those are first party games, obviously, Microsoft didn't lose any money on that person. But then they might also buy other third party games, smaller price games. Like once they're out of the Game Pass funnel, they might be actually more likely to buy and spend, which then you don't lose money on them.
You
especially
think they want
if
to filter out? Okay, you think they want to filter out the people that don't buy games because they have a problem with people that don't buy games? Like they're like, we'll increase our price, we'll keep the people that are willing to stay and be subscribed, and we'll get revenue from them, and then we'll filter out the people that will then incentivize them to buy games. So overall, we'd have more revenue as a whole. That's kind of like your theory.
Yeah, because I think Phil Spencer said this back when Forza Horizon came out. He was pushing back on the notion that Game Pass would diminish sales. And he said, actually, it's the opposite. Word of mouth is strong, and we saw an increase in sales for Forza Horizon, and he attributed it to Game Pass. Okay, that didn't come true. Right, that did not come to fruition. The opposite came to fruition. So I think they're saying we've got to get people off of this. If they're not, if it's basically turning people into non-purchasers, we're making money on them, yes. But when you start putting the big dogs on there, like COD or World of Warcraft or something like that, you can't have a culture of non-purchasing consumers. It just isn't going to work. You've got too much property that's worth high amounts to do that. So I don't think they're of the mindset of like, well, if we lose these people, it's a loss. It's like, no, they're going to start purchasing games instead of riding Game Pass, especially if their first game purchase is Call of Duty. Great. You got them to buy one of your big ticket items, and then that looks good to the shareholders.
Yeah, that's an interesting theory. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what the tier changes are. I think if they could retool a middle tier that actually lets you have live, that would just be beneficial for everyone. That would be more in line with like what PlayStation is doing, and Xbox offers a little bit more value with Game Pass than PlayStation Plus does, especially like PlayStation Plus Premium really only gives you like trials and back catalog, and Game Pass is giving you back catalog like pretty much up front. So as a service, like Game Pass is marginally better. They just need to be very, very careful about how much they increase that price, because it's like a sliding scale, right? So if they increase the price too much, the value kind of deficit there between PlayStation Plus and Game Pass is going to be negligible if you've got to pay $25, $30 a month for it. It's like, okay, well, that's great that I get some more high-profile games day and date, but like this is costing me out the wazoo. The value just isn't really there. Like for a long time, people have said Game Pass is the best value in gaming. They need to make sure that whatever changes they're making, they're able to retain that perception. That's probably the most important aspect of this, I think. It's not necessarily about COD or who's going to buy COD or who's not going to buy COD now or who's going to subs to the service. I think the most important sort of lead that's getting buried here is, are they going to lose the perception that Game Pass is the best value in gaming, depending on what they do with this? And I hope that they don't, because that's kind of one of the last things that they have going for them.
Well, it's the last thing going for them if that's their concern. If they're more concerned in,
if they want to throw Game Pass in the bin, they could do that tomorrow. They could say no more Game Pass, but I think they have a lot riding on it with 35 million subscribers, something like that.
Phil Spencer seemed to indicate that it was only ever going to be about 15% of their annual revenue. Like, I don't think they see it as being as central as we once thought. I think Game Pass is.
But then why put COD on it? It's like it's a cyclical thing. It's a cyclical thing. So we'll have to see if they have any idea what they're doing. But yeah, I hope they don't move away from day and date, because that's kind of the whole whole benefit of the platform, man. Like the fact that you and I can both play Hellblade tomorrow with that service is like, that's why the service is so great. So if they get away from that, I don't know where that puts us.
Well, it'll be interesting because Activision always avoided putting Call of Duty on Game Pass, so this is sort of a huge shift. We got to remember that too. Activision said they were always against doing it because of what it would do to sales. So, guys,
I am really excited about old COD though. Just to end on a positive note, like to have
for sure.
people get, you know, one subscription, you can get into Black Ops 1, 2, 3, or 4, or any of the Modern Warfares, like the old ones, like, you know, even on Xbox 360, the servers are up. That's really cool to have, like, everybody that is on this service can get into those. Hopefully it breathes life into some of those older classics. Would love to see that. So it'll be interesting to see that on kind of a minor benefit to this. I hope it does some things for some of those older beloved titles.
Yeah, especially the ones that have, you know, Black Ops 1 especially has, like, I think the best story. Such a good spin, such a good twist. I mean, guys,
it'd be great to see it breathe life into those.
Make sure and check out Kirk. His name is clickable in the description below. What's New Video Games. He's got a hard out at 1. He's got to go. He's got something with work. He's got
day job calls.
The day job calls. We're going to head to Writer's Room, though, so I'm going to put a link in chat, and we're going to redirect. This is the behind-the-scenes that you get as a member, so consider becoming a member that supports the channel directly, or if you watch enough, you might get the generous gifted members from people like MASH, who just went crazy, and then I gift 5 every 25. So smash the like button before we get out of here. Let's get 200 likes, and I'm going to start Writer's Room right now.
Thanks, chat, so much for all the support. You guys were really lively. See you next week.
All right. See you, Kirk. Thanks so much for being a member. You may have gotten gifted a member from me or from somebody else, or maybe you've been a long-standing member. I'm back. I'm back from vacation, and we kicked off the day with an upload about Project Latitude, a discussion where I said no games are safe if Project Latitude's going forward, and I just did a stream about Game Pass changing with Kirk, so be sure to check out all that great content if you missed it. We're going to be planning tomorrow. Tomorrow's probably just going to be a Hellblade day. This will probably be a pretty easy Writer's Room, and we got a great goal for the week, 400 members before Friday, and we already got 58. Thanks so much to MASH for kind of going crazy in that last stream. I'm going to end that stream and bring people over with Redirect who are members and can enjoy this content. And I'll change that thumbnail so it no longer is marked as live. And what a